Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. We have a pretty interesting Market Watch again this week. Lots of neat little price shifts happening all over the market. Maybe not all of these are going to be huge double-digit price jumps, but with so much new support revealed over the last little while, and also people turning their attention to new upcoming decks and different techs, there are a lot of smaller price jumps that you should all definitely be aware of. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's episode. Alright, so first up on the list we have Striker Ace Zeke. So one of the really cool things we had revealed last week was the new Striker quick play spell card called Linkage, which essentially lets you send a card you control to the graveyard to special summon a Striker link from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, which is really cool. It does help for when the deck doesn't have access to your Ray, Rose, or Hornet drones so that you can still get a monster onto the field. Now you cannot use Linkage to summon Zeke, since Zeke does need to be link summoned. However, I could definitely see this card being used to help push for damage, where maybe you can tag out your link monsters in the battle phase to help push, or you can use this card to send Area 0 to the graveyard to summon a Ray out of your deck to push for damage. Now, one potential problem here is that you will still need to free up your main monster zones so that you can use your Striker spells, right? So if you're sending Area 0, that Ray is kind of stuck. So I think that Zeke actually might be a more important card for Strikers, with the new card being used to where you might potentially need to run 2 copies of Zeke. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not great with Strikers, but a couple of friends of mine were having a bit of a discussion about it. They have much more experience with the deck than I do, and I think the general consensus is that the new spell card is pretty good, but it does require the deck to be constructed a little bit differently. Anyways, Zeke is the only Striker card with only 1 printing, that coming from Dual Overload, and we are starting to see the card trend upwards in price a little bit, where it's now sitting around the $5 mark on TCG Player. To be fair, we could definitely see this card reprinted as an ultimate rare in an OTS tournament pack, just like all of the other Striker link monsters, since clearly Konami loves Strikers and never wants for them to die. But for now, I would think that picking up Zeke at around $3 a piece is relatively safe, as I would expect for them to increase in price when Linkage is officially brought over to the TCG. Next up, we have Predaplant Chimera Felicia. So Predaplants are another archetype that just had support revealed over in the OCG. They are getting multiple cards in Dimension Force, which is the set after Battle of Chaos. I think the new stuff seems pretty cool. I know they get a couple of new Pendulum cards where you can fuse from the scales, and then there's a level 5 fusion monster that makes me really glad that instant fusion is limited. Anyways, because of the new support, we have seen Predaplant Chimera Felicia jump up in price, as it is one of the better Predaplant monsters in the game. It has an ignition effect that basically lets you banish a monster on the field, and then while it's in the graveyard, you can search for a polymerization or fusion spell card from your deck, so cards like Super Poly or Instant Fusion, which honestly seems kind of nuts to me. Now, as far as I know, this card is just going to be used at 1, but it is cool that an archetype that is really only known for being where Verte Anaconda comes from is finally getting some love. Chimera Felicia just has the 1 old secret rare printing from Fusion Enforcers, so naturally, as one of the better monsters from the theme, we've seen it jump up to $9 a piece on TCG Player at the moment. The deck probably isn't going to be top tier anytime soon, not receiving as much hype as a meta archetype would, so we will probably see Chimera Felicia settle back down to around $5 to $6 as some of the initial hype for the card and the new support dies off. If you do have some extra copies of this card, take advantage of this early hype and offload them at this inflated price if you can. The next card here is related to the Albaz stuff that we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks. It is branded opening, so we all know about Aluber, which is, by the way, up at $75 a piece right now, but there are some smaller cards that might be worth keeping an eye on related to the Despia archetype. One notable card is Branded Opening, a quick play spell card that lets you discard a card to take a Despia from your deck and either add it to your hand or summon it. It's important to note that that discard is not a cost, it is a part of the effect. I believe this card is played at 2 or 3, helping to greatly improve the deck's consistency. Now, much like Aluber, it only has the 1 printing from Dawn of Majesty, and also like Aluber, this card wasn't reprinted in the OCG's version of the Albaz structure deck. That being said, I could definitely see it being excluded from that deck here in the TCG as well, given how new the card is. However, I think that because of that, I wouldn't be surprised to see Branded Opening become a $5 to $7 super rare card. The card is already $2 to $3 a piece, and that's without anyone really knowing too much about if the deck is going to be good for sure here in the TCG or not. But given the early success that the deck is seeing in the OCG and all of the hype for it here, I do think it's going to be a big part of our meta. For now, the card is actually relatively cheap, so if you want to play the deck, I would definitely make sure that you have your set readily available to use. This is definitely a card that you should make sure that you dig out of your bulk from Dawn of Majesty and set it aside so that you can offload it when the cards are officially released. Up next, Totally Awesome is a card that everyone should have noticed over the last little while. The Water Xyz deck has become incredibly popular recently. I've had multiple people asking me for cards to build the deck with even within the last week or so, and Totally Awesome is definitely a card that you will want to run 2 copies of in the extra deck. When the Water deck has to go first, a pretty standard line of play is to use multiple Bahamut Sharks to bring out a couple copies of Totally Awesome, which is a generic negate that can also steal the card it's negating. You typically will only need to play 2 copies of Toad, since when the second one dies, you can just put back the first one into your extra deck if you really need to. Toad was a card that was actually pretty easy to overlook. It did have that rare reprint in Maximum Gold, and I think that because it was just a rare, a lot of people overlooked it and just assumed it was going to be cheap from there on out. However, keep in mind that Mega was quite a large set, right? So getting any individual specific rare card out of there is probably going to be a lot harder than you think. So even though the card was cheap on release, it has steadily climbed up over time, which was driven by this increased demand for the card with the Water Xyz deck. Now that, combined with how old and difficult to find the secret rare printings are, has led to all versions of the card jumping up in price. For the original secret rares from Invasion Vengeance, you're looking at $20 a piece, and for the Megaton reprint secret rares, they are around $15 still. However, even if you're okay with just the rares from Maximum Gold, even those are going to now cost you $8 a piece, which is quite a bit for a rare that was printed relatively recently. I think that this rare reprint was supposed to be the type of one that drove the card's price way down and made it super accessible for everyone, but the demand for the card with the popularity of this deck hasn't quite done that yet. If I were you guys, I would definitely look at offloading some of the excess rare copies that I have lying around, just in case all of the attention that the Water deck is getting prompts Konami to give Toad yet another reprint. Alright, so this is kind of an unexpected one, I think. Lava Golem is a card that has started to catch a lot of people's attention recently. Now on one hand, it is kind of strange to think of why this card would see play of all things when you have Kaijus, Sphere Mode, Dark Ruler No More evenly matched all in the game right now. However, Lava Golem is actually kind of like specifically useful for right now. I think with a lot of boards, you want to get rid of exactly 2 threats, where a Kaiju just doesn't do enough, but you also can't successfully summon Sphere Mode either. For example, against Invoked DPE, you can Lava Golem to get rid of both Mechaba and DPE, whereas Sphere Mode you can't drop at all, and a Kaiju only gets rid of half the problem. Another example is against Sword Soul, where you can get rid of both Chixiao and Baron at the same time, and even shut off their blackout since Lava Golem gets Chixiao off the field. Anyways, we have started to see Lava Golem pop up in side decks a bit more over the last month or so, so much to where it's the lower rarities of this card that have caught my attention. The card has a ton of different printings, right? So seeing jumps in the prices of things like the Secrets, the DT, the Retro Pack Supers, that doesn't really surprise me at all. However, what I think is worth noting is that the ultra rare from the Merrick structure deck is up at around $10 each, and then all of the different common and rare printings, even the common from the very recent Shaddoll structure deck, is $2 to $3 each. This card was cheap before and probably really easy to overlook and just throw into your bulk, so maybe take a second to dig up any extra copies of this card that you may have lying around so that you can offload them. Another side deck card that has seen a surge in usage recently is Evenly Matched. This card is one that has really seen fluctuating amounts of play over its lifetime. There are some formats where the card feels absolutely amazing, it's like a staple, but there are other times where the card is just super underwhelming and really not that great. Well, right now is one of the times where it feels pretty amazing to resolve Evenly Matched, as it can be a game-winning card in certain matchups or situations. Banishing the materials face down means that they can't be pulled out or used from the graveyard at all, and banishing them also means that you're not triggering the effects of cards like Cheng Ying or Artifact Scythe. Now, Evenly Matched has actually had 4 different printings, but strangely enough, all of them have been quite difficult to pull, and so the card remains fairly expensive. The original secret rares from Circuit Break are up at $40 each, and the Megaton reprint secret rares are still around $25. However, the card also had 2 ultra rare reprints from Dual Power and Ghost from the Past. After the Ghost from the Past reprint, I think Evenly tanked. It was down at around $10 to $12 a piece. However, with the increase in play over the last couple of months, and the fact that now all of these printings are quite difficult to find, you're still looking at having to pay around $20 to $25 for a single ultra rare copy. I don't know how long it's going to be before the card finally gets a printing that will make the card more budget in something like a structure deck, but given its recent price spike, it definitely feels like this card is due for yet another reprint. Alright guys, the final card we're going to look at for today is actually another water card. It is number 37, Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark. This thing has like 3 different animals in its name, that's kind of weird. Anyways, number 37 is of course an extra deck monster that can be used in the Water Xyz deck, though I don't believe it's like something that they would go into all that often. Its effect is really simple. It lets you reduce all of your opponent's monsters' attack points by 1000, and then if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon another monster out of your graveyard. So I guess this thing is cool, might situationally be useful to go for game or to run over something, but I don't think that by any means is it the type of card that you would be going into every single game. Anyways, the card has just 1 printing from back in one of the premium gold sets, so even though it's not that great of a card, people think that some people might want to use it in a deck that's receiving a lot of attention right now, and so they buy a bunch of copies and the price goes up. The card was sitting at $7 to $8 a few days ago. It has cooled down since then, back to around $5 a piece, which is fairly reasonable, especially when you consider that the card only has the 1 printing available. Despite that, if you're not planning on playing the deck and not too attached to the card because it's a numbered monster, you might still be better off dumping this card while people are actually looking for it, and then trying to buy it back later once the card has been reprinted. Okay guys, that is it for today's episode. A bunch of pretty random cards today. I guess they are still pretty cool, especially with these smaller shifts that you guys should still know about, because those smaller shifts can result in really large gains, even if the dollar amount isn't that big. I know Tom and I are going to try to coordinate a little bit to bring you guys some holiday stuff this week and next week, so make sure you stay tuned for all of that as well. And then of course we do have the ban list that's right around the corner, which is sure to shake things up even further very soon. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are trending on the market so I can cover them in a future episode. And if you haven't already guys, please do make sure that you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tom Bucks and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.